flip chart. You do want it,
Yeah, we'll wait. Yes.
Okay. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
We're going to look for some kid code this afternoon, and I would like to start by asking you if there are any very brave souls among you, two people, who have had an argument recently that you don't mind sharing with us. But let me tell you one thing about it. I want to know exactly the words that you used, word for word, because we're going to follow the process of how it built. Has anybody got one?
Two people who have one with each other?
Yes, if possible. You can? Okay. You guys know some rules, though. You might cheat. Okay, come on. Let's see how it works. There is Psychology Today, the magazine, did a study on arguments, and they found that in every case they studied, the argument unfolded in the same way. So they ascertained that there are actually steps to an argument, and people virtually always follow these steps. So we're going to see if we can identify them. You guys want to do it? Let's put two chairs up here for them. You got to be brave to do this. It's an awful lot like undressing in public.
We're trying to figure out which argument we're going to say.
Would you like to have an argument about that?
Process
Okay, one little rule. You guys are not allowed to look at the flip chart.
My wife tells me that the second argument was based on the first one, so there was a throwback. Yeah. And this took place within coming at a stop sign within 3 to 5 minutes, and then traffic moved and we went across the street, and so it was. But it sort of concretized the whole thing that happens in an argument, I think.
All right. Richard made a statement that had to do with some of the structural stuff here at the, I mean, literally the structural, some of the things like that being roped off, and he said something about shoring up the blah, 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 whatever it was all about. And to which I said, well, gee, you know, I immediately did my usual thing of jumping to a conclusion. And I said, well, you know, maybe that is a sign that you're supposed to leave this place, run out, and, you know, it's all over. And it sounded emotional to him. So we're talking about the fellowship building. And he said, isn't it just like, I shouldn't quote you, but I said, like, well, you know, maybe that's it. You know, forget the whole, you know, why don't you just get out of here? You know, maybe that's a sign. It's falling apart, the place. That was my, I don't know if I'm telling tales or what, but that's what I heard. What else do you want me to say? Anything?
That's.
That was my contribution. It was emotional, and what then you said.
Then I did the ancient history. I brought up something that had happened in the past, where I felt it was the gas bill that inadvertently forgot to pay it, and it was a cutoff notice. And this was on a Saturday that we discovered this. So Susan is saying, Monday morning, no gas.
I said, we'll have no hot water, we'll have no gas, we forgot to pay it, blah, 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 we could have gone Friday, and, you know. So he, at that point, that was last week. So when I said this thing about, why don't they just move out of the fellowship and find another building or whatever, he said, oh, there you go again, being an expert on something you know nothing about, just like when you said they were going to cut off.
Hold it.
Being an expert on something.
You jumped a step.
So,
What was the step?
but that was the thing that seemed to, when I said obviously something about the building, then I'm an expert on carpentry or structure, which I know nothing about. And why do I always consider myself an expert on things I know nothing about?
Always?
Always.
Always.
So
It's always,
I brought up,
and the word expert also is here.
Have them actually do the argument rather than...
Oy,
That's,
hey,
yeah, that's what we need. That's what we need. Act it out.
This is
Okay.
planned spontaneity, is that what you want?
Act it out. Do it. Say what you said as nearly as possible.
You started. Okay,
So
with
we
this.
have to do this now, to change from that. Okay, well, I'm driving. I say, well, you know, I think that thing with the floor needing to be
Little more
shored up,
motion.
I think it's probably right. Probably should just get out of that building, find another building, move out, have the fellowship meeting somewhere else.
It's,
That was my
let's
Yeah.
see, it's not that much. It needs to be shored up. I think we can shore it up. It's not that drastic right now. You're an expert in something you know nothing about.
What was the next thing? I don't think you have to be an expert. I don't think you have to be an expert to know. It's pretty simple. So it's like having a dream. Something tells you it's falling apart, move on. You know, what's the big deal? You don't have to know that much.
Then I bring up past history.
Do it.
The gas bill.
Yeah,
You
what
said
about
we
the
were going
gas
to, it was going to be cut off on Monday. And I
Right.
said, I'll go in Monday and I'll pay the bill.
Okay, so I was wrong about the gas bill.
Okay.
They didn't cut it off, but it's not unreasonable to expect that when you have a cutoff notice for February 1st, that maybe February 8th, they will cut it off. And we could have had to pay.
Okay.
blah, blah, blah.
Let's catch one here. You're saying, so I was wrong about that, but you do not mean that you were wrong,
No.
right? So you're not admitting,
I was pissed about it.
okay? What she was really saying is, I'm pissed, not I
Yeah.
was wrong. But I was wrong is a controlling manipulative
Yeah.
device. So that's kid code.
Yeah.
The I was wrong is kid code.
Yeah. I was wrong, but it was reasonable to think it would happen.
And the mega words, something you know nothing about. Obviously, she knew something about it, and you're always an expert. The word always, mega word.
And
And
then,
what I want to know is, what do you suppose this altercation was about? Whatever it was, it has nothing to do with construction.
Well,
it didn't end there, though. There's one other thing. When he brought that up, I turned to him and said, "Shut up, I hate you." And did you say bitch or no? No. Ruben said that.
No, I got my
I said,
satisfaction.
"Shut up, I hate you."
I
And
think
what did that mean? Shut up, I hate you.
That meant he
I
didn't
love
love me.
No, it didn't mean
No.
that. You don't believe that he doesn't love you, do you?
I don't know. No, I think I'm not sure.
Did it mean you're arguing better than I am?
Yeah, yeah. He was right.
That's what I think I hear. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I hate it when you win.
I was doing when I introduced the past. No, let me see. No, it was on a Saturday, and we discovered that the bill was past due, and we were going to have the cutoff. And Susan was getting very emotional about that, and I did a superior dance. It's Saturday, there's nothing you can do about it. And I was doing a very superior dance of being calm and collective, and she was being emotional.
I remember what I said. I said, "Why don't you get out of the car and dance your superior dance down to the village?"
If you're familiar with Saturday Night Live church lady who does the superior dance, that's what I was doing at her expense. Okay.
Yeah, John.
Susan, would you be careful of that podium? You've come very close to that
Yeah,
several times, and I'm worried about
I
your
felt
health.
it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Somebody loves you.
Knock
there.
some sense into.
Okay, one of the things that I think we haven't gotten to yet is what is the real agenda?
Okay.
Because what is brought up at the opening statement of an argument is never what the argument is about. We choose something else to bring up, to say, I'm uncomfortable about this. So do you know what it was behind it?
I wouldn't have known at the time. If I'm looking at it, I think it probably has to, where it ended up with it's who's right. Maybe. Maybe it's who's right. We also tried to 5-step this yesterday. So, got some clarity. We both figured out we were bouncing from red to yellow and back again.
Okay, but we're not specific enough because all arguments are about who's right. All arguments.
Perhaps some anxiety about, I'm just questioning anxiety about I'm going to be in a retreat for 3 days.
Maybe.
Possibly, okay.
Maybe. Richard is going on a sort of a personal retreat with himself for 3 days, so I won't see him. So but we talked about that, and I said, the night before, and I said, I want him to do it, and I think he's right, and I'm not really worried about him being by himself. I think it's good. But I still have the little girl abandonment. He's not going to be there. I don't know what it's about. Do you know what it's about? Does anybody know what our argument was about? I don't know.
Usually, something like
That
this.
sounds like what it was about, because you want to be all right with it. It sounds reasonable, and you want to tell him you're not all right about it, and the best way to bring it out is to start an argument about something totally unrelated so that we can bring up feelings, and at some point I'll get in my real feelings about you going away for the weekend.
It's possible. I can't argue with it. I mean, I can argue.
Try it.
It sounds all right. It sounds like it's possible.
Okay, this is the hardest thing to get at. What is the agenda? And the best place to end an argument is when it starts. See if you can find, if you're interested enough in what is the problem, the first thing you have to do is ignore the initial statement, or you don't have to ignore it, just note it and know that that has nothing to do. I mean, there's nothing in that statement that you can use to find out what the argument's about, because it is not in that statement. It is deliberately left out. So the issue that is initially brought up, whatever that is, it will tell you nothing except, I'm hurting. That's all it says. What you have to do now is investigate. What are you hurting about? And the person will not tell you until you have promised to understand. Now, if you do that, you never get past this first point. It never goes into step number 2. Well, what happens is when one person sets the agenda, which is not what the argument is about, the other person gets surprised. Why are you bringing that up? I know that's not what this is about, but I know what my issue is, so I changed the agenda. That was changing to the unpaid gas bill. That was an agenda change. Now, the purpose of changing the agenda is if I set the agenda, I control the argument. So I'm trying to take control from the person who made the first statement. I add my agenda, and then we may proceed as if the argument were about both of these things, and they're about neither of these things. These are just unresolved issues. And in fact, the resolution to these issues may already be there. The person just wants to say, I'm still uncomfortable about this. I know that it's reasonable. I know that I should accept it. I know what I should do. But something inside me has not resolved it yet. So what I suspect that Susan was saying is just, I need to be heard some more. I need to be reassured some more before you go. It's all right if you go, but I want to be heard more. I want to be understood. I want you to include me somehow in your going away. So I think that's probably what that agenda was. But Richard quickly established, you are not an expert, I am.
Implied.
You know, he not only told her that she's not. I mean, you know nothing about this, and I know everything about this. And both of those are mega statements. And here's the funniest thing that you can ever do in an argument. Take your mega statements and take the mega statement out of it and state it reasonably. For example, you always stay out late. Now, that you say in an argument, that's a mega statement. What would an argument sound like if you said, you occasionally stay out late. No punch, right? I mean, it's reasonable, it's real, it's honest, it's truthful. Occasionally you stay out late. And then the next statement is, you never call when you're out late. Suppose you took out never and said, sometimes you don't call when you're out late. It just doesn't work, does it? You couldn't argue like that. So if you drop mega statements, you've dropped your weapons. That's personal disarmament. Drop mega statements, drop charge words, and then see what kind of communication you get. Does somebody else have an argument that you can actually do in the words? I mean, act it out rather than describing it. Y'all want to do one? Okay.
The short ones are good.
Short one's nice, yeah. Yes. Mega means exaggerated, overstated.
Brave.
Really overstated. Yes. Appreciate that. Let me list some mega words here because I just realized she's Dutch and she doesn't understand the meaning of mega words. So I'm going to list some. Never is always a mega word. Always is always a mega word. Never, always, what are some others? Constantly. You constantly do that.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, nobody and everybody. In fact, how do we use everybody in an argument? Does anybody know?
Everyone thinks.
Okay, everybody is always on my side. That's called recruiting. Recruiting in the argument. We're recruiting helps. Everybody knows I'm right. You know, everybody else agrees with me. Everybody, not a few people, but everybody.
Do you want me to tell you how
It's
it
either
goes?
everybody or it's Paul Solomon. Paul Solomon agrees with me on this. I assure you that I don't. Okay, yeah, totally. That's another one. Another one that's a little more subtle, but often used is obviously. Obviously, you're doing this.
How about words of name calling, like Dick, Master?
That's coming up. That's another step. Do you think of other mega words? Any exaggerated word, extremely exaggerated.
Every time.
Every time, yeah. Every time, you always do this. Oh, hey, this is a good one, mega word. This is real ammunition in the New Age. My guidance tells me that you are wrong. That is as unfair as you can get. That's not fair fighting. My guidance tells me that you're wrong. My guidance told me that I'm not to have sex for a week. Or my guidance told me I am supposed to have sex for a week. What's wrong with your guidance? Okay.
Names als bubbel en fright or Jung, I think that's so mega words. Fright is saying this, Jung is saying that, the Bible is saying that. I think that's so mega words.
Okay, references. References, they're not mega words, they're called recruiting. References are to let me put recruiting under here because references comes under recruiting, which is one of the steps. The Bible is one that we can use. My guidance.
My dad said, my mum said.
My counselor.
What do you call it when, okay, like if I would do something my mother didn't like, she'd say, why did you pick me as a mother?
I think that's a real nice time to say I wasn't the one who got pregnant. Yes, I'm real well aware of that one.
How about your ex-wife or your ex-husband said?
Yeah. It's especially, it's especially damaging to bring up somebody that the other person doesn't like or respect anyway, like your ex-wife, your ex-husband, and comparisons. You are just like, and of course you pick someone that you know that person doesn't want to be compared to. So comparisons come up a little bit later with name calling. So references are any of these: everybody and the Bible, my guidance, my mother or your mother, Carl Jung.
Oh, because I love
Yeah,
you.
I'm doing this because I love you. Well, that's another step too. That's giving reasons which are not reasonable. Okay, let's check this. See where we go with this one.
You ready for a good one?
Face each other and get on with it.
Yeah, that
Why? We
I think
weren't
we
facing
need
each
gloves
other when
and
it
a ring
happened.
for this.
Make this real, Joseph, like the fishing. Really.
yeah, right.
Joseph, let's go make a nice cup of cappuccino. Cappuccino.
Okay. Karen, why don't we pour the coffee into the milk this time instead of putting the milk into the coffee like the way we seen it done at the Cappuccino company. That way it might be hotter.
Yeah, we could do that. And I proceed to take out the coffee, the milk, and I'm doing the milk.
Sure you are.
Just imagine I'm doing the milk. What did you say?
I said, I don't know.
You said, why don't we put the milk in first?
I said, well, why don't we put the milk in first?
Well, I am going to put the milk in first.
Okay.
Well, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about.
Well, I said to put the same glasses that we put in to the freezer, the same glasses. We'll just, once they're done and they're steamed, the milk's steamed, then we'll just put the coffee into those glasses without switching them to other glasses.
Oh, you want to put it in this glass. Well, we can't do that because it's come out of the freezer and it's too cold.
All right.
Okay, so let's put the milk, but we can still put the milk in first. So I go ahead and
Well, yeah.
I'm just giving, what happened then was I went and put the milk in the cup first.
So you can still put the milk in first.
And you, what did you do?
Why are we using these cups?
And I said, what's going on?
I don't understand. I thought we were going to use the cups that came out of the freezer.
And then
No,
I start
don't, yeah.
fuming.
Of course.
You never communicate to me. What do you want?
I never communicate to you?
All right,
I don't-
let's hold it because you're moving 3 steps ahead of me, and I want to get back to the beginning. Does anybody know where the argument started or what the agenda was?
It wasn't the cups of
Yeah, it didn't have to do with the cappuccino exactly, but what it had to do with was Joseph probably, I'm not in this argument, Joseph probably needed to tell Karen, you're doing something wrong. And what Karen heard, the first thing that she heard after she said cappuccino, she heard Joseph tell her, you don't do it right. They do it right at Cuisine and Company. This becomes an issue inside her which she doesn't say. So this is a hidden agenda for her, and he probably had a hidden agenda, but maybe not. Maybe he did just want to have the milk in first, but I
I
suspect...
wanted to have a hot a hot cappuccino.
Okay? Did you also want to make her wrong?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, because there's a right or wrong, and I see, there is a right or, everything is based on right or wrong when you come down to it, and somebody's got to be wrong in order for you to be right. So that's just telling you what I really see, but not in the moment when I'm in it, eh?
Yeah. It's very true that you often don't realize what you're doing when you're doing it. You don't even know your own hidden agenda because you can hide it from yourself. So you say things that mean, I have an issue, but I'm afraid to bring up the issue, so maybe I can insert it here.
Which is why he wasn't clear in his communication.
Okay, were you clear in the communication? That was a judgment.
Oh, I couldn't have figured out what he was talking about.
Okay.
We got it warm.
Yeah, you got two people here. One's not communicating clear. The other one is not hearing clearly. So what do you do with that?
See, I felt
Just
that
go
I
around
was...
in the big circle.
Yeah, I felt that I was willing to do it. If he wants the milk in first, fine, we'll put the milk in first. And I was proceeding to do that. What he had was a particular way he wanted the milk put in first that he didn't communicate.
Okay, basically what he wanted was to use the glasses that were in the freezer, and
Right.
you thought that would break them.
No, I just thought they'd be freezing cold. You know how
the
you cool
cappuccino
down.
would be too cold.
I thought we'd cool it down, yeah. Whereas we usually put it in a fresh cup that we warm up with hot water.
And my idea was, when I seen them make it the first, they take the one that they got the cup, and then they steam the milk, and then they pour the coffee into that, and then they give you that cup. And that's what I was trying to communicate to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so the idea of cappuccino originally was not an agenda item. The agenda probably was set when you said, let's do it another way.
It was not more a father and mother statement, or mother and daughter, or father and sibling.
Yeah. Let's do it my way. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what I heard from Joseph. She brought up cappuccino. Joseph said, let's do it my way. And
Using cuisine as a reference?
using Cuisine and Company as a reference that says, I'm right.
Right.
I want to establish that I'm right. There is a right way, and this is the right way. And you quickly agreed to do it that way with reservations. You're going to do it partly his way and partly your way. And use
Right.
the communication is unclear to give yourself the right to do it partly his way and partly your way. Does that sound like what might have happened?
Yeah, I see that as a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
What my mind was saying was he hadn't figured out we were going to get colder coffee by using the cups from the freezer.
Okay, and in your hidden argument that you were not saying aloud, this is something else, by the way. We need to realize that we're all psychic, and we know what each other are thinking, and I'm not kidding about that. What she says inside her head is going to make Joseph react, and I believe that what she said inside her head,
It's his
which
way
I
is
think
wrong.
I heard was, you're stupid. And I think Joseph heard, you're stupid. Don't you know that this will do that? So there's a little bit of, the intonation, the psychic or telepathic communication. When people live together as closely as Joseph and Karen have, there is naturally a psychic bond. You can't escape it. And you do transfer thoughts. Whether you can prove that in a lab or not, you've probably seen it happen enough that you know it. So you pick up what's behind the words and you react to that. And somewhere in here, we're going to bring in a whole different subject, I suspect. Where does that come in?
Oh yeah. Okay. Then we sort of steamed through finishing the coffee.
It was a good coffee as we were going through. Then I said the next step was
And I said, why wouldn't you communicate to me how you wanted it?
I said I didn't understand what you were trying to say
And I
because
just about hit the roof. I said, you don't understand. That's just that you're not willing to be responsible for your communication.
Okay, and you had just said that you didn't understand his communication,
Right.
right? So here we are. We've got a standoff. I don't understand. You don't understand. You're not communicating. I'm not communicating. So this one has come to power impasse. Now, where did you go past the power impasse?
Well, I kept pursuing that that the I don't understand was a way of, not being responsible for what was going on.
well, you kept
Really?
saying that I wasn't responsible and I don't know how to communicate, and I always do that.
And you were saying,
Okay, so we went to...
I just,
huh?
I said, okay. I says, you're right. I says, I didn't communicate.
But first you tried to be defensive, and then
Then after I says, you're right. I didn't communicate properly because if you didn't hear it, that means I'm responsible, and I didn't communicate because in order for you to understand, I should have communicated. I said,
And there was some communication about, I was communicating about how frustrated I was about not being able to understand what he wanted.
Okay. One of the most potent weapons that you can use is, you're right, of course, you're always right. Which is, of course, exactly opposite of what you mean. That's kid code, you're always right. Escalation is when the voice starts getting louder and the words start turning into mega words. You never, you always, you don't communicate, you never communicate with me, you always communicate this way. Why don't you say what you mean? Why don't you ever say what you mean? Ever is obviously mega words. So we've got agenda, which is a hidden agenda. It's only hinted at, but both of them know what the communication is. I want to do it my way. Okay, I'll do it half your way and half my way. That's fair.
And I definitely thought he was stupid for thinking that the cups from the freezer would work better. Yeah, I still think. I can't believe that one.
Okay, the question that you have to ask in order to resolve this is, would you rather have mutual respect or would you rather be right? What do you think?
well, I would rather have mutual respect.
Okay, you're absolutely sure that's true.
Yes, I am.
Then why did you try so hard to be right?
Well, it's different when you're sitting here right now and you look back at it.
Okay, that's true. Now, you got that article? You want to bring that up?
Why couldn't Joseph just say, darling, please heat the cups? You know, that's...
I already was heating the cups.
But it wasn't the cup that he wanted.
That's right.
It's got to be this cup. It's got to
Yeah.
come straight from the freezer, and
We're going to get hot.
yeah, we're going to get hot together. This is usually foreplay. Is this what was going on? Okay.
No.
I'd
get
say
too
that was
pissed off for foreplay.
I'd say that's the opposite of foreplay.
Okay, may not be for you guys. For a lot of couples, an argument is foreplay, and you always know when the argument starts, this is what it's about, we're going to make love. But we're going to put some passion into it first.
There's not a person in this room that hasn't had this argument. And it just seems to me that you have to be so acute in when your buttons are being pressed and when you're trying to press somebody else's button so that you can hotwire the thing and get to the real issue.
Right.
And keep from escalating, and I suppose that comes down to good habits and insights and things like that. But what would the, an evolved inner light consciousness person, if dropped into this situation, have done to bail out or to keep it from going in an unpleasant direction?
I'd say that the thing to do was Karen was proceeding to make the cappuccino, and I should have just gone and sat down and just let her make the whole thing without saying anything.
No, I don't think that's a good idea. Can somebody else give him an alternate suggestion?
Possibly instead of putting it back on that person, trying to make them wrong from the beginning, even though he maybe didn't realize that, coming out with a line like, how about if we try putting the milk in the cappuccino first, like we saw them do at the blah, blah, blah. It makes it more like, it's lighter, you're not attacking that person.
But you're assuming that that's what the argument was about. I mean, that would work if that's what Joseph really wanted. But if what Joseph really wanted is to let Karen know that she's wrong about something.
Yeah, but
That I'm not making the cappuccino hot enough. That
Pardon?
was his issue.
don't ever admit or make her wrong to begin with. Come at it from a different angle.
Yes.
And just kind of, hey, let's, you know, like in a fun adventure way, hey, let's try putting the milk in first like we saw him do, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Well, if we were talking about cappuccino, there's several ways that he could have done it without having an argument. For example, if she brought up cappuccino, Joseph could have said, hey, that's great, I'll make it. But he didn't want that. He wanted to let Karen know that there's something stuck inside him that he hasn't said. Has nothing to do with cappuccino. You could bring up popcorn, and he would have had something about that. What I hear here is that there's stuff that Joseph has stuffed down and believes that he can't say to Karen without getting a reaction. So he's going to say just a little bit, going to skirt around the issue and feel it out and see, is this an occasion where I can make my point? So there's a much deeper issue here. There's something wrong between us, something that we haven't talked out. And so I believe that Joseph was crying out to be heard about something. And it might be, I mean, I don't know what brought up the cappuccino. Was there anything that preceded that? Were you bored? Were you watching TV? Were you?
No, I was
what were
trying
you
to get
doing?
him up.
You were what?
I was trying to get him up out of bed.
Oh, so this is first thing in the morning.
No.
Oh. Stupid question. Sorry I asked.
No, you see, after I had breakfast, I went back and I lied down in bed, eh?
Yeah.
And
I just forgot. It's been so long for me.
People really do that.
Yeah, people still do that. Okay. So anyway, the point that we're establishing here is that this had nothing to do with cappuccino. It had to do with needs for intimacy and how to ask for what you need. And the most important thing, if we were talking about cups and milk and cappuccino, there are several ways that you could have gone about it without instigating an argument. And there are also ways that you can help Joseph with communication tools, or ask someone else to help Joseph with communication tools. But have you wondered where you would be if he communicated with great skill?
I guess I wouldn't have all these opportunities to learn how I react.
To see your own reactions, okay?
yeah, once that anger comes out.
Yeah,
It
I find that the
escalates.
hardest thing. He's not talking about what he's upset about, and it definitely, I go into confusion. Well, what's going on?
Okay, so you're really sensitive to, he's got an agenda that I'm not hearing.
Yeah.
But the way that you try to find out what that agenda is emotional. So whatever he would tell you that you want to know goes right down inside, and it's the last thing he's going to tell you. What could you do to get the hidden agenda out?
I could probably let him, I could have said something like, okay, well, why don't you show me how you want the coffee to be made? And then as we're doing that, say, is there anything else that, you want to talk about? I'm not sure I could do that, but
Why?
mostly because I feel it right
That,
away.
the
My
second
emotions
that
come
you
up.
feel that he has a hidden agenda,
Oh,
you
yeah.
tighten up in here.
Yeah.
And then it comes out in emotion. So that's scared. That's really scary. This is an interesting situation where Joseph believes that you're much more powerful than he is because you can communicate better. And Joseph actually is much more powerful because he's not as scared of the altercation as you are. But you look more powerful because you come on strong as soon as this, let's put this fire out before we find out what it is.
Yeah.
So he thinks you're strong. You try to be strong and put out a strong image, but there's a scared little girl inside.
Right.
Okay, so she's the one that we need to deal with. And there's a little guy in you that needs to tell her that she isn't letting you communicate what you need to communicate. You're scared to communicate because this scared little girl throws up the warning signs. Don't you go any further. Is that what?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you feel.
I see that a lot of times. Oh, I better just stop right here. Like, you know, it starts to escalate. And so I just try to shut my communication down or from inside because I know it won't.
And what do you believe will happen if it escalates? What eventually does happen?
Well, she pulls away and she stops communicating.
And is that punishment? Or is that
It feels like
her
punishment.
with...
Feels like punishment.
Okay,
Yeah.
to you, what does it feel like, Karen? Is it self-survival? Is it
Oh, yeah.
protection? You're withdrawing
Yeah.
to protect yourself?
Yeah, because I fear, you know, what I perceive as, I feel attacked. So,
You feel attacked when you attack him?
well, in that situation,
That wasn't fair. I'm playing with you.
yeah, I feel attacked, and then I come back
Mhm.
with my attack.
Okay.
So I think, you know, if I look back to my family, no one ever dealt with the issues. We all just yelled and screamed at each other, and nothing ever got resolved. So I see him coming off with, you know, you're not doing it right, and I go, whoa, something's brewing here.
So he's bringing up a specter from way back in your
yeah.
past that you tried to get away from years ago, and you find it reincarnating.
Yeah, and I just want everything to be calm. Okay, let's deal with the coffee.
So why don't you call him Karma instead of Joseph?
Well, she has called me her father many times.
You're just like
Okay.
my father.
Oh yeah, just like my father.
One of the things that we have to be sure of is that we want to know what the issues are more than we want to be protected from facing the issues. Do you feel like that you're ready to know the issues without protecting yourself?
Yeah.
Or do you feel that you would need a third person to help you not be hurt, or help you hear, or help you communicate, help him communicate?
Probably need a third person. I think, you know, we would just get bogged down. And I lose track of what's happening. Start
Okay.
reacting from the emotional body.
Okay, when you get to the name calling, what are the names that you use?
Stupid.
Stupid, and you call him your father. You're just like my father.
Yeah, I've said that.
And that sounds like it's a pretty heavy accusation.
Oh, definitely.
And you've told him this, or do you know her father?
Pardon?
Do you know her father?
Oh, I know her father, yeah.
And you share her opinion that that's...
No, I just let her go on and go on. I know, and she just gets angrier and angry and starts, you know, in a rage or taking out. And
And do you clam up? What do you do?
I just shut up. Yeah, I don't.
Does that make you angrier?
Yes.
So shutting up is one of the ultimate control techniques. I mean, screaming is not nearly as powerful as shutting down. And shutting down is the ultimate, you can't do anything with me now. I'm unavailable, I'm out to lunch. So that's really heavy control, although it sounds like very often, I mean, we kid ourselves by saying, I'm going to end this argument by getting out of the way. And getting out of the way is another power trip. This is ultimate control. I'm unavailable. Okay, thank you very much for sharing that. And it's really important for both of you to hear what George said, that every couple in this room has gone through the same argument. over the same cup. That cup has been passed around for centuries. Thank you. Okay. What I'd like to do now that we've gotten sort of the idea of what kid code is, I think you've got it. I'd like to list some kid code up here, and I'd like someone who writes well to put some statements up here on the board for me. So Alan's real good with this. Let me give you just a couple of examples of kid code before we start. Yeah, not yet. This is a new updated version of a very old book. Some of you grew up with Hein Ganot. Hein Ganot. He didn't used to use the term kid code. But he does make the point, it's now the first chapter in his book. It used to be way back in the book, and now it's obviously become the thing that, that works best. I want to give you a couple of examples from. Picks up a broken fire engine and asks, nursery school setting, kindergarten setting, this is his first day. Why is he asking who broke this fire engine? He doesn't know any of the other kids. If somebody gave him a name of who broke it, wouldn't mean anything because he doesn't know any of the names. What is he asking? Who? Oh, he broke it? You think he broke it?
He's trying to blame.
He's trying to blame?
He's trying to find out what happens to children.
You got it. He's trying to find out what happens to kids who break fire engines. So if, you know, the mother with him says, don't ask that, it's none of your business, you don't know any of these kids anyway, but if the teacher knows kid code, she will know what he's asking is what happens to someone who breaks a fire engine. If she's wise, she then says, toys are made for playing, and children are rough. Toys break. Now, actually, Ganot uses that term, toys break, or toys get broken. I don't agree with that. Kids break toys. Toys don't break. Toys don't get broken. Children break toys. What she needs to communicate really clearly is not that toys get broken. Children break toys, and that's all right. That's what they're for. That's what they're here for. And you don't get punished for breaking things. And if there is expensive equipment or whatever, that will be explained. This is off limits. But even when you tell a child this is off limits, it's adult responsibility to make it unavailable to the child to break, if that's what the adult expects. Hold children responsible for what children can be held responsible for. But what I want to get at is now, Ganot is telling us this is the way to talk with children. Have you met anyone who's not children? I mean, we all communicate with this same code, and we do the same thing. My son, who is 30 years old, used to have a problem, he got over it only 2 years ago, I think, of saying the vase got broken, this fell. It was never, I did this, never. But he doesn't do that anymore. He got real clear about that. But this is an example of what we do to avoid responsibility. By the way, I have David's permission to share that, so I'm not telling on him out of school. He knows that he's my favorite source of examples, and he doesn't mind. I'd like to hear some of your kid code. What are things that you say when you mean something else? And here are some situations. Just let me give you a couple of situations. Supposing you are not admittedly desperate, single woman, and you want to know if a man is available. How do you ask? Or do you? Hmm?
Seeing anybody?
Are you seeing anybody? Okay.
When will your wife be here?
When will your wife be here?
What will your girlfriend think? The way
What will your girlfriend think?
What are you doing this evening?
What are you doing this evening? Listen, only someone from Holland would do that. That's pretty straightforward. Americans are too shy for that. Aren't you? Do you ladies ever ask, what are you doing this evening? Some do and others don't admit it. Okay, other areas where kid code statements come out. Can you think of some? Yeah, we need to leave a mic down there where we can get at it. Not yet. I'm going to give you, we're going to, as soon as we know.
Do you want to go out for a walk? Which was really saying, I want to go out for a walk.
Okay.
I'm asking, but I often say, do you want
All right.
to?
Just put up there, I say do you when I mean I do.
What do you want for breakfast or what do you want for dinner? Which means I'm hungry.
Okay. I say I'm hungry by asking you what you want to eat.
I'm not trying to control you.
All right. Here's a really great one because we all do this. We say what we're not doing, and then there's that word but. And whatever follows but. Am I allowed to say this? Whatever follows but is an asshole. Whatever follows the but is what I said I was not doing. I don't want to control you, but. I don't want to argue, but.
I'm not criticizing.
I'm not criticizing you, but.
To tell the truth, and that's followed by a lie.
To tell the truth is followed by a lie. Okay? Put some of those up there. I'm not trying to control. I'm not trying to scold you.
I was just kidding.
I was just kidding. Okay. That can often be kid code.
I'm not really angry with you.
I'm not really angry with you. I'm just hurt. Which makes you feel much more guilty than making me angry. I'm just hurt.
Tell me the truth, I can take it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
That didn't really bother me.
That didn't really bother me.
Because I love you.
I only say this because I love you. Well, that doesn't even sound true, does it?
But we can get away with it.
I mean, some of it is so blatant. When you look at it, it's so obvious.
No, I was just wondering, some of these seem like cut and dry, like opposites, whereas the first example you gave us was deeper. Could you use more of those examples?
Such as, what was the first one?
About the fire engine getting broken?
Okay. Let me give you some more from here, because he's got some really good, he's got some whole conversations here that I want to show you. Here's one where the situation is, it appears to be not too important to the adult, but look what happens. Carol, age 12, tense, tearful. Her favorite cousin is going home after staying with her for the summer. And Carol, with tears streaming down her face, Susie's going away, I'll be all alone again. And you hear that, all alone. That's already a mega statement. She's not going to be all alone. It's just that Susie's not going to be here. So mother, rather flip, says, you'll find another friend. And that statement says, what you just said is unimportant. Do you hear that? And that really hits the teenager. Mom does not understand that what I'm feeling hurts way down here. You'll find another friend. What does that mean? Susie is replaceable? My favorite cousin is replaceable with just some other friend? So this thing becomes deep right away, and the adult doesn't even know it because the adult's values are different from the child's. I mean, the adult is thinking, well, she's going to see her cousin again next summer. This is not important. It's no big deal.
And this might even be a case where the adult knows that it's important, but thinks that it's best to downplay the importance of it. That's where my mother was always coming from. She always belittled things like that, not because she really thought they were so little, but she didn't want me to fret about anything, so she wanted to say, well.
Right. She wanted to make it easier to handle and wound up making it harder to handle because she didn't say, I understand the depth of your anxiety, your hurt, your apprehension about what's coming tomorrow and so on. Now, again, here we're talking about adult-child, but I really want you to hear that this happens between husband and wife regularly, and it happens between people on the board of the fellowship and staff members of the fellowship, whatever, department heads. One of the interesting things is a department head trying to prove power by doing something he knows other people are not going to like. But he wants to know, what are my limits of power? And that can be very damaging to an organization or a company or whatever. In fact, there's one thing that another recent study about women executives has shown this. Men executives work from a pyramid model, from a power model at the top, telling people below them what to do. Do it and do it now. And the thing that is very clear about that model is when you force somebody to do something, they will always sabotage it. So male executives using power model get sabotaged all the time in the projects that they hand down. Women executives go to the people and ask. And now they have women executives teaching men executives a new model that is not a pyramid model, it's an inverted pyramid. They make a family structure out of a company. So if you can do that in your communications, what you have to have, whether it's adult-child or male to male, female to female, or male to female, what you have to have for good communication is mutual respect. And it may surprise you that we don't have that even in love relationships. I know a situation where there is a husband, a wife, and 3 daughters. The husband's communication with these 4 women, one of them only about so high, and one so high, and one so high, and the mother. The communication from the father is precisely the same to all of them. He orders them all around in exactly the same way. They all obey in exactly the same way. They all talk back to him in exactly the same way. So it's a dominant father and 4 daughters. No wife in the picture. There's no mother. And the funny thing about this is that the girls do not relate to the mother as a mother. They relate to the mother as a sister, because that's the role she's playing. So they don't know that they have a mother. And the father blames the mother for not taking control. It's not as if he would let her. I mean, there's no way that I can see that she's going to get in a mutual respect position, because his whole head is women are women, which means whatever you want to do after that. But it does mean that men make the decision. I'm the father in this household. And in fact, this particular man loves to say women belong in the kitchen. A woman's place is in the home. All these little statements. If you don't have mutual respect, you will not have communication. If one believes that there's superior education, if one believes, I pay the bills in this house, I'm the one that earns the money, not you, that's not often true anymore in couples. What are some other ways that you see in inequality in relationships?
Who's the kid code for I'm just trying to teach you?
Okay? I'm just trying to teach you how to handle these situations. What is he, from whom? From father? From husband? Okay, what's her husband trying to tell her if he says that? Okay, that's too obvious though. There's something more. I'm just trying to teach you. What does that say?
I'm up here and you're down here.
Okay, I hear it saying you're not a wife, you're a daughter. I think that's the community. I mean, where else does a man come from just trying to teach? Unless, if your husband's trying to teach you electronics, that's a sensible thing to say because he's an electrician, an electrical engineer. If he's trying to teach you how to handle things in the kitchen and he's not a chef, that's a different communication. So in what area is this that he's trying to teach you? Where does he use that?
Well, sometimes it's like in relating with people. Sometimes it seems to me like he's telling me, he's trying to teach me, but what I feel like he's saying is, I'm trying to learn.
You probably hit the nail right on the head. He's trying to learn. And I'm trying to teach you. It may mean, let's try to learn this together. If so, you could say that. Why don't we learn this together? That may be the most appropriate response to that. Now, if you say, let's try to learn this together, he is going to hear, you don't know either. So that can be heard as an accusation. So you have to be ready to respond with, and maybe you should just say it right up front. I don't think either of us handles this well. Why don't we try to learn together, and why don't we get some input?
I just sense that it's a real delicate thing, and I was wondering how to handle it.
Okay, I think it might be all right to say, I don't want you to be my teacher, I want a husband. That might start quite a row. Yeah, always saying, I'm trying to teach you, puts you down here in a student role. But he's saying something else too. I'm just trying to teach you. He's trying to say I care. And he doesn't know how to say that directly. So what you might want to do is ask some questions. What happens when we bring up this agenda, when someone brings up an agenda and you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know what happened today, and you have to find out, what is she on about? How do you go about finding out?
When I hear, I'm just trying to teach you, another way of saying, I don't know how to communicate to my heart.
Okay.
And that's what I'm trying for, to learn how to communicate to my heart, because I'm communicating to my heart, I'm not trying to teach you, I'm sharing with you.
Because if he's really trying to learn, I sense that there's this big thing of pride right there that he doesn't want to damage. So his way of asking, to help me learn is for him to say, I'm trying to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I found it a delicate thing to deal with. And also, in the way it puts me down, but in the way it also puts me up, too.
Okay.
I guess it depends on the situation.
I think I would ask him not to try to teach you and say, this is not the kind of relationship that I want. And it's probably a good idea to do that with a third party that he respects, to help him understand what you're saying and why you're saying it, why it makes you feel put down. Because to his mind, it probably means the most loving thing I can do is teach you. In fact, this is a classic scenario because you have the big strapping man. It's called the My Fair Lady syndrome. I see great possibilities in you. I'll marry you and make you what you could become. Therefore, I'm just trying to teach you. Can't you see how much I'm doing for you? And that's the My Fair Lady syndrome, and that is practiced by men who need to be heroes. They need to save women, and they don't understand why women don't appreciate it. Watch My Fair Lady with, who is it, Rex Harrison does that?
It also occurs to me, just in listening to that, that there's the same thing is, I'm right, you're wrong. It's not I'm trying to teach you. I'm trying to verify my own superiority by making you the student. And so that's a degrading thing. I spent 10 years as a teacher, and there's nothing more wonderful than being able to reach out and open up a mind and to experience that interchange. But if it happens at the expense of one party, that's not education.
Yes, exactly. And the best way to teach anyone is to make them think they're teaching you. I mean, that's real teaching, when you get them to say it and realize it. Let me go on with a little bit of example. I've gone past my time, haven't I? Okay. That means I'll take a couple more minutes and we'll break. Okay. Mother has said, I said break, not crack up. Mother says in a flip way, you'll find another friend. And the daughter says, I'll be so lonely. Mother, you'll get over it. That's about as uncaring as you can get. And this is the case where she says, oh, mother, and breaks down into sobs. And then mom gets to say, you're 12 years old and still a crybaby. You know, this happened to me in Australia about 6 or 8 months ago. I was talking about the abandonment issue that comes from the relationships workshop. A little girl is going into a grocery store with her father, and her father's holding onto her hand, and the little girl, 3 years old, 4 years old, more than anything, she wants to get away from his grasp. I mean, they don't want to be controlled. So he's trying to play good father, hang on to me, don't let go of my hand, and she's tugging to get away. And finally, his patience wears thin, or he's distracted picking up an item from the shelf, and she gets away. So naturally, she runs around the corner into the next aisle, and then those aisles are so high, even an adult can't see over them. She goes 3 aisles away and then realizes, Daddy's gone. I don't know where he is. I don't know my way back. This girl is in a life and death situation. This is literally survival to a 4-year-old. And she cries out with a survival scream. Now when that scream goes out and Daddy realizes that she's 4 aisles over and she's screaming, what is he thinking? She's hurt? I don't think so. She's embarrassed. He's embarrassed. That scream means that he's a bad father. His thoughts are on him, not the child. And that's almost certain to be true. Now, there may be exceptions. But here goes the father making a beeline to the source of the scream, and the first thing that he wants to do is stop her crying. By now, she's in hysterics, she's hyperventilating, she's gasping for air, this whole thing, and Daddy is so red. Anything that I can do to stop her crying. He grabs a piece of candy, shoves it into her mouth. Stops the crying. And what he doesn't know, and what most fathers don't know, what I didn't know until a year ago, is that healing tears have a different chemical composition than tears of terror, pain, hurt, or anger. And if healing tears are not cried after the terrified tears, then they have to be cried later in life. So the question for all of you is, have you finished crying yet? And the answer is almost certainly no. You've got a lot of crying to finish. I told this story, and a woman was in sobs by the time I finished the story, and I thought, goodness, I mean, that's pretty strong emotional reaction she's having. And on the break, she came to me, and she said, that exact thing happened to me. It was not my father, it was my mother. And when she got hold of me, she didn't give me a piece of candy, she didn't hug me, she hit me. And God, the hurt that I felt in that. This woman's 40 years old, and she's just now crying the healing tears from that. We have to understand each other, and we have to understand the depth of what the other person is feeling. If we can get our mind off ourselves, the biggest secret that you'll ever learn about communication is, if I want to know what you're thinking, I have to care more what you're thinking than what I'm thinking. Now, that is the one thing that can abort an argument at the outset. You can stop it right at the beginning if, as soon as you notice there's something wrong here, instead of defending yourself, forget about defending yourself. You don't need a defense. You don't need a defense. The problem is not you. Write this down or put it in your memory bank. There is a book written by a wonderful, wonderful woman, Laura Huxley, wife of Aldous Huxley. The title of the book You Are Not the Target. Now actually, now that you've read the title, you don't need the book. It's really true. I mean, you can read the book, but what it will say is you are not the target. Not ever, 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 ever. And it's even egotistical to think you are. You're not the target and you're not the problem. That person's pain is the target. And their attacking you or crying out to you or arguing with you is a compliment which says, my pain is the target, but I believe that you are the person who can help me. Hear a compliment every time you are so-called attacked by your partner. It is not an attack, it's a cry for help. You're not the target, my pain is the target, and I believe that you are the person who can heal my pain. Hear the compliment. Choose to hear the compliment. And then ask, what's the pain? Can you share the pain with me? Even in the situation of Carrie, asking about this thing with her husband, Carrie's best move at this point is to find out what is his pain. Where does his need come from to teach her? How can I understand him, understand him, understand him? Not tell him who I am. I have to understand him first. What we have to do, if we want to be heard, is that we have to open the ears of the person we want to be heard by. How do we do that? We talk them out completely. And that will take 12 to 14 hours. Constant talking. And let me tell you a rule of this marathon. Some of you are doing a marathon this week. The seminarians are. If any of the rest of you want to join us, by all means do. If you've never done a marathon, believe me, you need the experience. There is nothing else like it. And if you believe that you have been marathoning with your partner for years and years, let me tell you for sure, absolutely, unequivocally, for sure, you have not. There are specific rules to the marathon, and the first rule that you need to know is the first 24 hours belongs to your partner, not you. And during your partner's 24 hours, you can only ask questions to keep them talking. No facial feedback, no facial expressions that are feedback, no body language feedback, no disapproval of anything, no hint at a disapproval. If you open your mouth at all, it is only to draw out more information about something, and even then, be careful that you don't have a hidden agenda. I happen to know, for example, with one couple, that when they do get into a 2 or 3 or 4 hour mini marathon, they've never had a complete marathon, but their mini marathons are, he is picking her for details of her past sexual experiences, and this can go on for hours. And he picks and picks and picks, apparently for his own erotic pleasure, except that a little later, he comes back and reminds her, and it becomes a guilt trip that he puts back on her. And there's this crazy, vicious, perverted cycle going on in this relationship. So when you're drawing out information. Make sure you don't have a hidden agenda. You're not picking particular information that you want to use on them later. In this first 24 hours, one person talks, only one person. This is not a dialogue. It is a unilogue. Now, if that person, the talking one, if they want to get 8 hours sleep that night, then you go to sleep when they want to go to sleep. If they want to talk the whole 24 hours, you do whatever you have to do to stay awake and listen. After 24 hours, it's your turn. And you need to get the partner to understand the rules. No feedback, no body language, no facial expressions, no signs of approval or disapproval, no praise, no criticism, no feedback. Just listen. Draw it out. Draw it out. Ask, but do not comment. And that's for the 48 hours. Now, in the last 4 hours on top of that, you got 24 hours apiece and an extra 4 hours to talk about anything that came up. That doesn't take long after you've marathoned. Don't do it at the front end of the marathon, only at the back end. The reason for this is in 8 to 12 hours of continuous communication, if the person talking feels heard, feels listened to, they will stop talking with their head and their mouth, and they will start talking from the heart and from the gut. And if you do this 48 hours correctly, you will have heart bond communication, both heart listening and heart speaking. You'll both communicate on a heart level. And one of two things will happen. If you are a committed couple, you will either know that you are in love, that you want to be together, and that you understand your partner for the first time in your life. And don't you believe for a minute that you know everything about your partner if you haven't done this. And I mean 48 hours, not 24, not every day for the last 20 years. You have not learned some of the things that will really surprise you about your partner. Now, if you don't believe this, check it out. Because I know it's so. In 20, 30, 40 years of marriage, you never tell all of these things unless you have this extremely safe environment in which you know you can say anything, it will not be used against you later. One of the things that you might come up with is, we don't belong together. My belief is, if a couple asks me to perform a wedding, I require them to marathon first, 48 hours. If a couple wants me to help them separate and get a divorce, I require a marathon, or I won't participate. And it's even more important to marathon before a divorce than it is before a marriage. Because divorce is set up in this country as an adversarial relationship. Our court system sanctions it. And the lawyers will do everything they can to punish the other partner. For God's sake, have a marathon if you're going to split up. Talk it out, talk it out, talk it out. And don't let a third party be part of the relationship until you are out of the relationship. Never consider there's someone waiting in the wings. If you do, you got to marry your husband again. Only a different mask, but it won't look very much different after the first week. If you're going to leave a relationship, leave it. Be out of that relationship for a minimum of 90 days before you even date once, even light dating. 3 months before you even think about it. And if you don't, you know, I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just telling you what works and what doesn't. And if you realize that it doesn't work to desperately need another person so that you can leave this person, if you're covering your ass that way, sorry, you get him again. You know, you get it in the end again. You're setting yourself up. Don't play those dangerous games with yourself. Take a break. We're going to come back in 20 minutes, 15? Okay, 15. So we come back at 10 of, is that right? Get yourself some coffee break. We'll be back with you soon. This is the Reverend P.S. Bear. He is my Walter Ego.
Yeah? You got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good check. He's been through a lot with me. Okay, we're going to synopsize this, and then we'll take some questions. How to lose an argument in steps. Agenda setting. Now that's what you bring up first in order to get an emotionally charged communication going back and forth. Any excuse will do. It is never what the argument is about, and it is always stated in kid code. Agenda changing is the first thing the other partner does. Change the agenda, argue about something else. That's bringing up something future or past or unrelated. Agenda changing. The purpose of this is to decide who controls the argument. It's a power struggle. Agenda number 3 becomes win-lose. Somebody wins and somebody loses. Now, in a win-lose situation, the thing that I want to point out is there is never a winner. There is never a winner in a win-lose situation with anyone that you care about at all. If you make them lose, you're in trouble. If you lose self-respect, you lose their respect. So you don't want to lose the argument, you don't want to win the argument. We'll give you the alternative in a minute. The next thing that happens is introducing mega words and mega phrases. This is bringing the weapons out of your arsenal. Name calling and past indiscretions come up next. Usually name calling first and then past indiscretions come in those steps. Ultimatums, silence, ignoring the other person, walking out. Those are ultimate power trips, making yourself unavailable. By the way, one thing I'd like to say about ultimatums is if you're going to issue one, be prepared to be taken up on it. Because the other person always will. Not that they mean it, but you didn't mean your ultimatum either. So they'll just say, that's it, the marriage is over, I want a divorce, I'm walking out. They don't mean that. Well, when you say, that's just fine with me, you don't mean that either, do you? It's not fine with you. So they don't mean the ultimatum, and the worst thing you can do is accept their ultimatum. So don't offer one and don't accept one. And then the other possibility is number 7. It's called transformation. It's also called rending the veil, and this is a win-win situation. Rending the veil means revealing what it was all about in the first place. If you are partner number 1, you started the thing, your statement was first, even if you say that was a non-threatening thing, I was not starting an argument, I didn't mean to start an argument, never mind. Whoever communicated first needs to say what it was really about. That's rending the veil. What I really wanted is to tell you how much I love you. What I really wanted was for you to reassure me. What I was really feeling was left out. What I really wondered was how you feel about this. Arguments come up for all of those reasons. I feel left out, I feel not heard, I feel not understood, I feel left out, I feel ignored. In fact, the primary reason for all arguments is called automaticity. Automaticity means when you get to the point in a relationship where you can be with the person you're with without thinking. You think that you've gotten to know them so well that you can treat them automatically. You automatically treat them in a certain way. When people are treated automatically, they feel ignored. And the thing you need to know about human beings is they can be loved or hated, they will not be ignored. If you ignore them, they have to get your attention, and getting your attention is done in the most damaging ways that you can imagine. People in an emotional situation will destroy the things that they love the most, including their house, their car, their relationship, their children, their finances, everything that meant something to them before the emotion. When the emotion gets at its height, we can be very, very destructive. And we're destructive only for one reason. We want to be right. And the question you need to always remember in an argument is, would you rather be right or be in love? Would you rather be right than to be together? How important is it to be right? The alternative to being right is being all right. If you're all right, you don't need to be right. The need to be right is only comes from a person lacking self-worth, self-love, self-esteem. If you are all right with you, you do not need to be right. If you need to be right, you need to win an argument and have a loser, then your self-worth is the problem, it's not the other person. Your relationship with self and source is the problem. Remember that. Rending the veil also means stopping in the middle of an argument and admitting what you just did, such as, what I just said, I really meant to hurt you, and I know it did. And I'm sorry, that's not what I really want. I was not acting rationally. I am being cruel. It's called getting real. Rend the veil. It exposes your vulnerability, leaves you wide open to their attack. You know, I'm being nasty. I am trying to hurt you deliberately. And for goodness sake, the worst thing that you can do in this kind of a situation is to get into denial. When you are so sure, I did not say that to hurt you, just listen to yourself and see if that's the truth. You can darn well bet you did. You did say it to hurt. And then the question comes up, why would I want to hurt? Well, we want to hurt people because that's a way of getting attention. I want you to hear me, and if I can't get you to hear me any other way, I'll do something to hurt you. Then you will know that I exist. You will have to recognize that I exist. So I'll hurt you to get you to recognize that I exist and I'm important. So if you will take responsibility for deliberately causing hurt and say, that's why I said that, that's why I did this, that's why I was attracted to this other person, I wanted your attention. When you come down to it, when there's a third person, when there is an affair outside the marriage, it is rarely because the person is attracted to that other person, or would be under other circumstances. It is, women pick the men who mean the most to their husband to have relationships with, and vice versa. You won't be attracted to her unless your wife thinks that she is special. I mean, that's the person you want to have a relationship with outside the marriage, isn't it? You let your wife pick the lady for you. But otherwise, it doesn't mean much. Watch it when it happens, and you'll see the person that the guy picks was picked by his wife, and it's picked in order to get through to his wife. He didn't even want that relationship. He just wanted her attention, or she wanted his attention. If we can remember that when we start getting jealous, and you know, when you see some guy raving and say, well, go to him, fuck his brains out. Never mind. What was this about last night? When he says that, you know, he's saying exactly the opposite of what he means, but he is saying what you wanted him to say, right? You got his attention. He's reacting. He does not mean what he says, but you also do not need a relationship outside the marriage. And if you do, for goodness sake, end the marriage first and give yourself 90 days before you date anyone, no matter how attractive, no matter how much you would die for them. Don't die for them for at least 90 days. By then, you will make a different choice in who that next person will be, because you'll be different.
I have a question about the automaticity stage.
I keep doing it, sorry.
I have a question about the automaticity stage. You were saying how, obviously, if one person is feeling the victim of being treated that way by the other person, can it also be true that the other person can be feeling the victim of that other person and both be doing it to each other at the same time?
It's almost always mutual, yes.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
It's almost always mutual. And the interesting thing is that both parties feel attacked and abused. You know, and both of them absolutely sure it's the other one doing it to me. So if you can take out doing it to me out of the whole conversation, just never even consider that. They're not doing anything to you. They're doing what they want to do or what they need to do. If that's not what you want them to do or what you need them to do, you can get angry if you want to. Or you can let them know without hurting them. Avoid the compulsion to hurt the other person. Unless, of course, you like high drama. I mean, there are people, you know, I had this amazing experience about 15 years ago where I was with this couple who had a wonderful relationship, wonderful home, wonderful child. Everything was going for them. This woman came to me for marriage counseling because there was nothing wrong in the marriage. And she literally thought, that can't be real, something is going to go wrong. And this anxiety about something has got to happen because, I'm happy, he's happy, he really loves me. What's wrong? And that was a real eye-opener for me, that people simply can get bored in a relationship and they think something has to be wrong all the time. And that was an answer for me to a question that I had been asking. Why do people live in high drama all the time? Because I don't enjoy it. Why do people live their lives that way? And they live their life that way because it gives life meaning. I've got to have something to work on. I've got to have an emergency situation that gets my adrenaline going and I really feel like I'm participating in life. But it's hell. So examine yourself and see if you have to have a problem in order to believe that life is worthwhile. If so, you will live your life in high drama. There'll be lots of fights, lots of emotion, things like that. If you really want it, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's not my kind of movie. Rending the veil is revealing your vulnerability, taking responsibility, honestly. Not this business of, oh, you're right, I'm sorry, I have no right to speak. Martyrdom. If you want to be a martyr, buy your own cross. Unless you married one. The Tao of communication. You know, you got that term Friday, right? Tao of communication. And you know that the Tao is drawn this way with a dark side and a light side. And a light spot in the dark side, a dark spot in the light side. This is male and female, yin and yang, together in the married position when it is in a circle. Whenever there is a question, any question, the Tao becomes impregnated. And that means that it gives birth. So it gives birth to sons and daughters. The Tao communication happens only this way. If I am yang in conversation, you must be yin, or there is no conversation. There's only talk. There has to be a yang and a yin. And one thing that you should look for in communication is when the other person's mouth opens, they are yang, and they cannot hear. Open mouths automatically close ears. So just know that. If their mouth flies open, what do? I bet I know what you do. You get a little louder and faster because you're going to get yours in before they slip theirs in. So you're afraid of interruption, so you get louder and faster. But that's useless because if their mouth is open, they've already stopped hearing. So even if you do get your words in, they will not be heard. They cannot be heard because their mind is on what they're going to say back to you. Everything that is said past that point is just wasted air. And you needn't bother with it. If, on the other hand, the other partner is yang, you must be yin. If you are yin, a yin and a yang in conversation impregnate one another in turns, and they give birth to a creative result of the conversation. What is born of a real conversation is understanding. That understanding may be a new project. And very often we substitute children for understanding. What's wrong with our marriage is we need to have another child. That'll give us something to focus on. That'll give us something to love. I know that sounds insane, but how many times has it happened? How many of you were born because, never mind.
I not.
Here's what you can do. These are the dictates of the Tao of communication. Number one, respect yourself in all your communication. Do not be tempted in any way at any time to put yourself down. It's not fair to you and it's not fair to the other person. Don't put yourself down. Have self-respect in the communication. Have just as much respect for the other person, your correspondent. The other side of the communication. Respect yourself, respect the other person. If you respect the other person, it will not be possible for you to insult them. You don't insult someone you respect. So the minute you have thrown a name-calling, an insult, or sarcasm, you've made a statement of disrespect for the other person. The conversation is over at that point. When the conversation deteriorates to the point when communication is no longer happening, then do make yourself unavailable. Get out of the situation until mutual respect can be reestablished before you start talking about the subject again. Talk about mutual respect before you start trying to solve issues, any issues. Reestablish mutual respect. If any conversation has gone into name-calling, sarcasm, derogatory statements, any deterioration of the communication so that communication is no longer happening, stop. And the next thing you start with is reestablishing mutual respect. If that doesn't happen, don't bother discussing anything else because there will be no communication. There cannot be communication if there is no respect for yourself and the other person. They must respect you, you must respect you, you must respect them. If that's not present, neither is communication. Don't kid yourself. It doesn't happen. So reestablish mutual respect before you discuss anything else. Statements of understanding precede statements of advice or instruction. As in Richard and Susan. If Richard had made a statement of understanding for Susan's point before he gave advice or instruction in what is to happen here, instead of, so you're an expert, sarcasm. You always do this, or whatever that was. The first thing to do is a statement of understanding. And then you give the partner opportunity to clarify the understanding. You state what you think you heard. This is what I hear you say. Is this what you mean? Give the other person a chance to clarify the understanding. And then, if there is a need for advice or instruction, make absolutely sure that the other person asked for it. If they didn't ask for it, they will not receive it. No matter how good your advice is, if it is not requested, it will not be heard. So save it. And then you get to do one of the best techniques in all of communication. Make the other person want to know what you have to say. If you can't do that, no point in communicating. You got to make the other person want to know. If they don't know enough to ask, then don't give them any advice or any instruction. Had a woman call me from out of state yesterday telling me that she wanted my advice on this high drama that was going on in her life. Real trauma, or suicide, all this stuff. So here I am on the phone with this woman in tears and hysterics, And every time I opened my mouth, it was as if she could hear it, see it on the other end of the phone, because every time my mouth opened, she came in with another sentence. I got to tell you this, I got to tell you this, and no, this won't work. And I hadn't even suggested this, but she's telling me it won't work. She's guessing all of the recommendations that I'm going to make and canceling every one of them, leaving me no options whatsoever. And when she's told me everything that won't work, I'm sitting there wondering, this woman has just told me nothing will work. So I said, have you considered suicide? That got her attention. And I said, well, if you're going to be dead, you know, you may as well make it official. You know, either be dead or alive. But if you're going to be alive, let's get on with it. Put away the drama. And I really wanted her to ask if she wanted some advice or information, but she didn't. She really didn't. And that's one of the things that counselors need to remember. Such therapists as husbands, wives, mothers, prostitutes, and other therapists need to remember that the client never comes to you to work out their problems. And when you kid yourself into thinking that's why the client is there, you're already in trouble. Clients do not come to you for answers. They come to you to be heard, understood, and accepted. And if you do those three things and then admit to them you have no idea how to work out the situation, they'll tell you. The patient always knows the answer to their problem. Everyone knows the answer to their problem. Everyone has a source. And they will listen to the source if they get you to acknowledge their worth. That's what we do for each other. That's all we do for each other, acknowledge one another's worth. And if you are always willing to do that, always willing to acknowledge another person's worth, you'll have a lot of people who love you. Not only that, they'll not only love you, they'll think you're wise. You're wise enough to tell them what they told them, what they told themselves. And there's nothing wiser that you can tell them than what they told themselves, because you're agreeing with their wisdom. You must be incredibly wise. If you listen well enough, you can always do that. Any counselor can do that. Listen until they tell you the answer and then repeat it back to them, and you will be a sage. Really, not illusion. You really are wise if you can do that. That is wisdom. Giving people back the answers that they give to you for their problems. And you should do that with children. If you don't respect your children will know that, and they will damn well let you know that they do not want your advice. If you respect them, and if you ask them, how would you work out that situation? What do you think? Always ask the children, what do you think? Make that important. Let them work out their problems. And if you listen well, you'll find out how incredibly wise a child can be. By the time they can talk, they are wise. And they are not naive in communication. They know how to get their point across. They even know how to put it in code in order to tell you something if you want to know. And if you don't crack their code, they will know that you don't want to know, because if you wanted to know, you'd crack the code. It's not impossible to crack the code. Kid code is fairly straightforward if you listen to it. Don't believe the words. People never say what they mean. If you think they do, you better listen again. Crack the code with adults and with children. People are wise from the time that they can talk. Unfortunately, children have been told by parents, you'll understand this when you grow up. Not likely. If you understood it, you wouldn't have told them that. So they're not going to understand it when they grow up. They're not going to be wiser when they grow up. And for us to tell children that they're not wise is something that they will remember right into adulthood. You know that we form personality and self-image at age 3. Do you know that we do not reform personality and self-image at any point thereafter, unless there is an actual transformation in our life, and that's rare. It's rare for a human being to change in basic, deep internal ways. We can change superficially, but a deep internal change usually requires a life and death struggle, a real trauma, a dark night of the soul, an emergence into the light from the dark end of the tunnel. Now, it doesn't have to be that way, but it usually does happen that way. That's the most used technique in all the world for self-transformation. What you have to do, this is the technique in case you want to know it. You get yourself into so much trouble that you cannot get out by yourself. That's the technique. Now, that either leads to a breakthrough or a breakdown. And I want to tell you something really interesting. Do you know that in the tradition of the dervishes, the other name for dervishes, Sufis, in the Sufi tradition, the word breakdown and breakthrough are the same word. And if you have a mental breakdown, a nervous breakdown as we call it, of course nerves don't break, but if you have a nervous breakdown in the Sufi community, they will congratulate you. That is a sign of positive change. They congratulate people who have nervous breakdowns, mental breakdowns, emotional breakdowns. They congratulate them because it's obviously an opportunity to start. And even psychiatrists in the United States, I mean, even those guys know that a person who has had a nervous breakdown in the past is a stronger person and less likely to break down again than is the average person on the street. People who break down once, pick themselves up, and go for it don't break down again. They've had that experience. They know how to do that. That's just a technique. And we should know that. All illness is a technique for dealing with something. So, if the technique worked for you, then you will not find it necessary to repeat it again. Statements of understanding precede statements of advice or instruction when you're talking with adults or children or clients. Statements of understanding mean repeat back what you think you heard. And the other person will almost always correct what you thought you heard when you repeat it back. And for that reason, it's not a good idea to open your mouth and answer before a person has finished a sentence. You're sure what they're going to say before they're finished saying it. But if you let them complete it and then repeat it back, you'll find out they weren't saying what you thought they were saying. So don't interrupt. Listen to the statement all the way through and repeat it back before you answer it. Impregnate. That means you have a heart. A heart is a womb, the womb of the soul. It's also the womb of creativity, the womb of understanding, the womb of wisdom. It's the heart. If you listen with your heart, you will become impregnated with another person's idea. If the impregnation is mutual, it will give birth to one understanding between you. The two of you will have a little one. It's like George so wonderfully said this morning. He was going to give us a couple of songs and a little one to make them happy. That was beautiful, beautiful communication. So the impregnation says, if you and I talk, there should be a result. And the result is birth, because what we just had was social intercourse. There should be a child resulting from that intercourse. And that child is the birth of understanding, the birth of new beginnings, the birth of creativity, the birth of wisdom. Now, here's here are some other suggestions in how to listen. Go from the event that is described to the relationship. If a person is talking about relationships and they are describing an event that is giving them a hard time, even whether the relationship is with you or with somebody else, understand that the event that they're talking about is not the subject. The subject is the relationship. That's what they're talking about. That's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned about the event. The event only revealed the concern for the relationship, so talk about the relationship. Let's take a situation of two children. This one I've heard in our house lately because we have two little girls living with us. And little April very often becomes whiny and accusatory and says, "Brandy won't play with me." And that may be the situation. Brandy is not playing with her right now. Why? Because Brandy wants April to really want her to. It's a little game that goes on. But what's happening is relationship, not Nintendo. April wants to play Nintendo. Brandy wants to watch television. What April wants is not to play Nintendo. She wants a relationship with Brandy. That's important. And if adults, remember, don't get in the argument of whether you watch television or whether you play Nintendo. That's not what either child is concerned with. They're concerned with, does Brandy love me? Does Brandy want to be with me? Does April want to be with me? Go from the event to the relationship. The relationship is what's meaningful to both children. And either one of them will do what the other one wants if they understand that the other one wants them to be together. Deal with the relationship. From event to feelings. Event, remember you were given this, the wheel of the elements. The earth element deals with the event. Just the facts, please. Computer. Go from the event to the feelings, because people's feelings are where they're coming from. And the event is only an opportunity to express the feelings. So go to the feelings. And even if a person is totally left brain, never talks about feelings, never uses the word, they still have feelings, and their feeling is much more important than getting the event exactly correct. This is an interesting thing that you watch. People correct each other on the details of an event. And of course, the left brain person has a better memory for the details of the event than does the right brain person, because the right brain person doesn't give a damn about the details. So the right brain person is always trying to tell the left brain person, forget the facts, they're meaningless. And the left brain person says, what do you mean the facts are meaningless? The facts are all there is. And here's where you need a translator, because one is speaking Japanese and the other speaking Italian. And it is that far removed. I mean, I have many times sat with a couple and did nothing but translate for them. Translating this one's facts into that one's feelings, and this one's feelings into that one's facts. And it literally takes a translator, unless you're willing to go from event to relationship, from event to feelings, from general to specific. When somebody says, you always do this, ask them to be specific. On what occasion? What is it you have in mind? What's bothering you? Go from the general to the specific. Get down to terms. But then when you get specific, you've got specific events, go to relationships, go to feelings. So those three things will happen in the Tao of communication. And make yourself a commitment to yourself and to your partner to avoid these things in communication. Never, never interrupt. That's a break-in. It is a loss of security. The other person will not feel heard. So when you're constantly interrupting someone else's communication, You're restless. You can't wait for them to finish the point. You know, there are people, I'm sure, that you have conversations with that you never get to finish a sentence, mega word, never. At least you feel that you never get to finish a sentence. They always jump in. And you realize when they jump in, they do jump in prematurely. It is, you realize that they didn't know what you were going to say. So how do you deal with this? If somebody else is always breaking in, what do you do? What you do, don't raise your voice, just continue saying what you were saying. If they miss it, it's their loss. And what you get to do is you get to know what you know and what they know. And all they know is what they know. So you're better informed than they are. Don't interrupt, even if you think you know what that person was going to say. Take your time. And if the person never lets you get in a word edgewise, all you have to ask yourself is this person worth listening to? And if not, there is one thing that you can feel free to do, and I have had to do it. I've had to say to people, I have something else to do. And they will say, I need just another minute. I'm sorry, I have something else to do. I don't have another minute. Now, is that unkind? It's not unkind. You have to be kind to yourself as well as the other person. If you don't have time for this, you don't have time for this. And it's not an insult, and if a person does get angry because you didn't have that time for them, let them have the opportunity at some other time of making themselves available to be heard as well as to hear, or to hear as well as be heard. In other words, if a person is not communicating with you in a way in which you can be yin and yang alternately, if it's not a dance, get off the dance floor. Get out of it. And if they want to know, how do we reestablish? Then tell them, I would like to be heard as well as to hear. And if you want to hear my input, if that's important to you, then let's establish some rules. When your mouth flies open, I will shut up. When my mouth flies open, will you shut up, please? Establish some rules, but don't break in. This is the worst thing that you can do in communication. People know that they're not heard when you break in. They're not, and they know they're not.